Primordial Desolation. I am the Dragon Ancestor. I choose for the dragon race to retreat from the very beginning. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 554. Just when he thought he heard wrongly, his vision suddenly went dark. When Wei woke up again, he saw that he was tied up. He looked around, found himself tied up in a hidden cave. At this time, a sound suddenly came from the entrance of the cave, and he quickly pretended to be sleepy. Shen Long walked in. He looked at Wei Wei, who was pretending to be sleepy, and said, "Stop pretending. I know you are awake." When he heard this, Wei Wei suddenly opened his eyes. When he saw the one in front of me was Shen Long, who looked a little angry. "You are still Zhu Long, the leader of the Dragon Clan. Why are you so despicable, eavesdropping there, and even tie me up?" Wei asked angrily. He actually suspected it was Shen Long before he fainted. After all, the barefoot immortal said that Shen Long had already begun to doubt him. Shen Long must have seen the barefoot immortal leave the banquet and follow him. "Let me ask you, why did Buddha want to catch us all in one fell swoop?" Shen Long asked, ignoring Dai Dai's angry questioning. "Why should I tell you? Who are you?" "Yes, you are the leader of the Dragon Clan and an ancestral dragon. However, I am a human being and we are of different races. How do you want me to listen to you?" Wei said mockingly. "Are you really not going to tell me?" "Believe it or not, I have 10,000 ways to make you say it. Come on, let me see what the leader of Dragon Ball is capable of, and let me tell you." "Die!" Wei shouted. Shen Long looked at Wei in front of him, and Wei also looked at him. Suddenly Wei's eyes changed from bright to dim, but it only took a moment, and his eyes changed from dim to bright again. "Is that all you have? I thought the leader of the Dragon Clan was very capable. Just such a little mental attack is not enough." "Die!" Wei mocked Shen Long crazily. Shen Long looked at Wei in front of him. It seemed that the Buddha had adopted a very loyal dog. "Ha ha ha, I will never let you know. I will drag you with me even if I go to hell." After Wei finished speaking, he suddenly self-destructed. Shen Long quickly defended himself. Wei's magical power was not as much as that of Shen Long, so Shen Long was not harmed at all, but his self-destruction made Shen Long frown. He felt this matter must be reported to Fuxi. At the door of Fuxi's immortal temple. "Stop! What kind of little fairy are you? Is this a place where a little fairy like you can come?" A guard at the door asked sternly to Shen Long, who wanted to come in. "This fairy friend, I am an old friend of your temple master. I have something important to report to your palace master, so I ask you to go in and report it." "It is Shen Long who wants to see him." "Okay, wait a moment, master. There is a god outside who says he has something important to report to you. He seems to say his name is Shen Long." When Fuxi heard the guard at the door talking about Shen Long, he stood up quickly and said hurriedly, "Let him in quickly." "Yes." The guard at the door responded and respectfully withdrew. When Shen Long outside heard the guard at the door asking him to come in, he quickly walked in. "Shen Long, I heard from the guards just now that you have something urgent to report to me." "Yes, it is still a big deal, but the one at your banquet is a clone, right?" "Yes." "Did you see it?" "I can tell. I just followed the barefoot immortal with my clone technique and found him in the back garden of the banquet. He told a guard that the Buddha wanted to catch us all." Chapter 555. Fuxi didn't expect that things would turn out like this. He was shocked and asked Shen Long in front of him if this thing was true. "It's absolutely true. Deceiving you won't do me any good, so why should I deceive you?" Shen Long said that what he said was absolutely true, and deceiving Fuxi would not do him any good, so there was no need for him to deceive Fuxi. "It seems that the ambitions of Buddha and Pixiu are really too great. I really don't know when Buddha and Pixiu had such great ambitions." As Fuxi said this, a very serious look appeared on his face, as if he was making a very important decision in his heart. "Do you think we have to crush the ambitions of Buddha and Pixiu?" Fuxi asked Shen Long. Shen Long looked at Fuxi and nodded. saying that the conspiracy of Buddha and Pixiu must be crushed. We must smash their conspiracy, and we must not let anyone easily disrupt the mortal world again, Shen Long said to Fu Zai. Fu Zai nodded, and then looked at Shen Long with an expression that showed he had made a major decision. Since Buddha and the others are so rampant, let's formally summon our men to duel with him. Fuxi looked at Shen Long with a very serious expression and said. Shen Long knew that Fuxi was not joking with him, but was really planning to go to war with Buddha. Although Shen Long also felt that Buddha and the others were really rampant, and the things they did were too bad. It's too much, but I think it's not time for them to start a war, so they can't start a war hastily like this. I think that although Buddha and the others are very rampant, it is not suitable for us to carry out our operations now. We still don't know what preparations the Buddha has, and the power on the Buddha's side is very huge. If we rashly fight against the Buddha, we will ultimately fail. It can only be us. Shen Long said that the power on the Buddha's side is very huge, and the Buddha himself is also very powerful. Moreover, they don't know what kind of preparations the Buddha has made to prevent people in heaven from going to war with him. So if the war starts so easily, it would not do them any good, but would cause them to suffer unexpected losses. Fuxi smiled after hearing what Shen Long said, and told Shen Long that he had thought very carefully, but she had already thought of what Shen Long had thought of. Already thought of it. You think about things very carefully, but I have already considered what you are thinking of, and I have already made corresponding preparations, Fuxi said to Shen Long. Shen Long looked at Fuxi in confusion and asked her what kind of preparations she had made. What do you think was the reason why I held a celebration before? Is it just a matter of gathering idle people for a meal? Fuxi asked Shen Long. Shen Long suddenly looked at Fuxi with a look of realization, indicating that he knew what Fuxi's intention was. Therefore, the original intention of holding that ceremony was not to invite the people present to eat, but to gather them together to deal with the Buddha, right? Shen Long asked Fu Zai. Fu Zai looked at Shen Long and nodded, saying that Shen Long was absolutely right. The reason why she held the celebration was to summon people from heaven to deal with Buddha. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 556. Shen Long didn't expect that Fuxi really planned to go to war with Buddha, but Shen Long still felt that if Fuxi's power and Buddha were to go head-to-head, Fuxi would probably lose in the end. Shen Long felt that he should stop Fuxi and not let her go to fight with Buddha easily, because the only person in heaven who could find a way to fight against Buddha was Fuxi. If Fuxi lost at this time, everything would be lost. If Fuxi made any mistake, no one in heaven would be able to fight against Buddha. After Shen Long thought of this, he felt that he could not let Fuxi take the risk to fight against Buddha. If he wanted to fight against Buddha, he must at least be fully prepared. If Fuxi rashly declares war on Buddha, he will definitely not be able to defeat Buddha. After all, Buddha is very scheming and powerful, and there are many powerful people as Buddha's helpers. Fuxi will definitely be defeated no matter what. After thinking about this, Shen Long felt that if Fuxi went to war with Buddha, he would definitely lose someone in heaven who could help him fight against Buddha. So he decided not to let Fuxi go to war with Buddha. Don't be impulsive. It's not the right time to start a war yet. If you rush into a war with Buddha at this time, we will definitely lose, Shen Long said to Fu Zai, saying that now is not the time to officially start a war with Buddha. If he rashly starts a war with Buddha at this time, the two of them will definitely suffer losses. I have made sufficient preparations and will not be easily defeated by Buddha. You can rest assured about this, Fuxi said to Shen Long, saying that he was fully prepared and would not lose to Buddha easily, so Shen Long could rest assured. Shen Long shook his head helplessly, indicating that even if Fuxi was fully prepared, there is also a high possibility that he will lose to Buddha. Even if you are fully prepared, there is a high possibility that you will lose to Buddha. After all, Buddha is very powerful, and we still don't know how many capable people and strangers there are on Buddha's side. Just like this, with Buddha, if they start a war, we will definitely suffer losses. Shen Long said to Fu Zai, saying that if they rashly start a war with Buddha now, they will definitely suffer losses. After Fu Zai thought about it, he felt that it was indeed what Shen Long said. What do you mean? You can't go to war with the forces on the Buddha's side under any circumstances now? Fuxi asked Shen Long. Shen Long looked at Fuxi and nodded, saying that was what he meant. He hoped that Fuxi would calm down and not start a war with Buddha easily in any case. He would wait until the time is right before starting a war with Buddha. Not too late. Fuxi didn't expect that Shen Long would stop her in this way, but thinking about it, Shen Long was indeed right. She didn't know what kind of preparations the Buddha had, and rashly starting a war might indeed bring her great consequences. Fuxi felt that Shen Long had thought carefully, and felt that he could listen to Shen Long and not start a war with Buddha for the time being. Fuxi asked Shen Long what his plans were, and Shen Long said that he could investigate the matter privately first, and formally he launched a private investigation with Fuxi and learned that Buddha really brought a lot of people with him. He advised that there must be no war now. Chapter 557. Fuxi had indeed listened to what Shen Long said, and now she could only do as he said. It was indeed dangerous to act so rashly, and she began to regret the words she had said before. Fuxi is the leader here. He was supposed to be the most serious person, but he didn't expect that he has lost his sense now. Fortunately, Shen Long is here, otherwise who knows what he would do to make him regret. Although I said that, I still can't swallow this breath. I can't stay passive all the time. After saying this, Hao Yixing rolled his eyes a few times and suddenly thought of a good idea. He slowly approached Shen Long and whispered a few words in Shen Long's ear. After hearing this, Shen Long thought for a moment, nodded. In that case, I leave this matter to you. Then the place appeared. What Fuxi said to him just now was just to let her tie up the barefoot immortal. Shen Long didn't have any opinions on this. He and the barefoot immortal were not familiar with each other in the first place, and there was no conflict between the two. There was no fate. He would not refute Fuxi's suggestion. The only one to blame was the barefoot immortal. He was so careless that he was discovered so quickly. Then Shen Long inquired all the way and found it. The barefoot immortal. He was drinking tea in a small pavilion, looking very comfortable. Shen Long narrowed his eyes slightly. Baizi walked up and sat in front of the barefoot immortal. The barefoot immortal looked Shen Long up and down, looked at him with some confusion. Not sure why he came here. Come with me for a walk. After saying this, Shen Long took out a thick rope from his pocket. The barefoot immortal was dissatisfied when he saw this. He patted the table, stood up and glared at Shen Long. Do you know who you are talking to? Shen Long smiled, obviously not taking the words of the barefoot immortal seriously. Then he did not explain to the barefoot immortal, but directly stepped forward and tied up the barefoot immortal. The barefoot immortal originally wanted to struggle, but he found that Shen Long's strength was unexpectedly great, making him unable to struggle. Originally, the barefoot immortal was still struggling and insulting Shen Long, but soon he accepted his fate and could only plead. Can this strong man let me go? I have no enmity with you and have never met you. Why do you do this to me? After the barefoot immortal finished these words, Shen Long did not answer much, but continued to move forward. The barefoot immortal took a long breath, and then said with a headache, otherwise, if you tell the person behind the scenes, he will no matter how much benefit I give you, I can give you'd better take it easy. It's already here. Shen Long kicked the door open. This house was left to him by Fuxi. This place was quite remote and not many people came here. Then he threw the barefoot immortal in. The barefoot immortal hit the wall. The pain made his face twitch. The main reason I brought you here this time is to ask you about your relationship with Buddha and what he did. Shen Long didn't talk nonsense to the barefoot immortal, but asked straight to the point. After the barefoot immortal heard this, he suddenly realized that Shen Long had come to tie him up because of this matter. I was really wronged in this matter. I didn't know anything. Chapter 558. After hearing this, Shen Long narrowed his eyes slightly and asked several more questions, but he found that no matter how he asked the barefoot immortal, He always said that he knew nothing and firmly said that he was wronged. The barefoot immortal answered all the questions he asked with perfect accuracy. This made Shen Long feel a little bit difficult. After all, he saw the barefoot immortal discussing with the guard at that time. Stop pretending. If you discuss with that guard, I will see it all. If you treat him truthfully now, I can consider letting you live. When Shen Long said this, he was also looking at the barefoot immortal silently. He found that the barefoot immortal acted as if he really didn't know anything. This strong man, I beg you, I really didn't do anything. Can you let me go? The barefoot immortal is also in great pain now. He has always been innocent and was caught and questioned about such a thing today. How can he bear it? After Shen Long heard this, he stepped forward and put his hand on it without saying a word. The top of the barefoot immortal's head. The barefoot immortal wanted to avoid in a hurry. He knew what Shen Long wanted to do to him. But her struggles were useless. Soon Shen Long had invaded his consciousness. He had no idea about this kind of life. He is very familiar with the techniques, so he will not cause too much harm to the barefoot immortal. What's more, he is still a god and will not be injured so easily. Shen Long read through all the recent memories of the barefoot immortal, but what he felt was puzzling. He actually gained nothing, just like what the barefoot immortal said. He didn't do anything recently, apart from busying himself with his daily affairs, saying hello to other gods and going out for drinks, etc. The barefoot immortal really didn't do anything. Didn't do it. Shen Long put down his hand with some doubts, while the barefoot immortal glared at Shen Long with some complaints. How about it? Now you have nothing to say? I said it's not me anymore. After hearing this, Shen Long pondered for a moment, and then began to search again with worry. He recalled that he had searched the memory half a year ago and found that the barefoot immortal accidentally encountered the Buddha. Shen Long looked at the scene carefully. After a while, he realized that the Buddha had secretly placed a spell on the barefoot immortal while he was not paying attention. Shen Long took his hand back and looked at the barefoot immortal sympathetically. As expected, this matter had nothing to do with him. Relationship. He was also taken advantage of. Don't worry, I have investigated the real matter clearly, and I will never wrongly accuse you. The barefoot immortal breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this. Shen Long pondered for a moment, and found out that if the barefoot immortal really didn't know anything, it was probably the Buddha who was controlling him. The Buddha was always a cautious person. He must have a certain intention to do this. He would not let himself be bumped into so easily that day. In all likelihood, he saw it on purpose. Then Shen Long found Fuxi and told him everything he thought about. Told him, I think that 9 times out of 10, the Buddha deliberately let me see and tell you, thus triggering a war. When the war is initiated by you, it will be able to deal with you openly. I have to say that these ideas of Buddha's foot are indeed good. If Shen Long hadn't been there, it is very likely that Fuxi would have really fallen into the trap. Chapter 559. The most important thing now is not to let Buddha find out. We have discovered his tricks. You have more important things to do recently. The barefoot immortal will let others watch. Shen Long nodded after hearing this. It seems that Fuxi is not planning to release the barefoot immortal, but this is right. After all, if he releases it, the Buddha will most likely be discovered, so it is better to keep it locked up. Shen Long was afraid that the barefoot immortal would misunderstand him, so he took time out to visit him that day. The things that the barefoot immortal did before were very offending, but they were all done for the sake of the whole world. After Shen Long finished saying this, he saw the barefoot immortal glare at him. It was obvious that he was dissatisfied with him, but Shen Long did not blame him. After all, the things he had done before were too much for an immortal. It was indeed too rude. In the end, Shen Long told the barefoot immortal roughly what happened. The barefoot immortal was surprised when he heard it and soon calmed down. Don't worry, I won't argue with you, not to mention that the person behind you is still Fuxi. I can always go against everyone in the world. After that, the barefoot immortal cooperated with them and stayed in this small room and did not go out. Then they released some gossip to the outside world, saying that they could not get anything from the barefoot immortal's mouth, so they kept paying attention, and Buddha was still complacent after hearing this. After Fuxi released the news, he immediately secretly summoned several gods in private. These gods were all people he could trust. Then he also called Shen Long over. When Shen Long arrived, there were already 7 or 8 Sanqing here, and everyone's expressions were a little frozen when they gathered together, and their expressions were not very good. "You're here, sit down here quickly." After Beizi said this, he patted the seat next to him, and then waited for Shen Long to sit down and explained it to Shen Long. It turned out that before he arrived just now, Fuxi summarized the recent events. "I told everyone," which made their faces look so bad. Usually everyone has great faith in Buddha, but now he sees that this incident is undoubtedly a slap in everyone's face. "I believe that every god will not look good after hearing this kind of news." After Beizi said this, he sighed and felt a little helpless. Then they discussed in this room all night and came up with many ways to deal with it. In order to avoid leaking the news, they did not plan to let's talk about this matter so quickly. Fuxi also decided to hold a banquet immediately, and the banquet cannot be postponed any longer. After Fuxi discussed it with everyone last night, after returning, he immediately asked people to arrange the banquet, and notified the gods and gods, those Buddhas. Soon the day of the banquet came. It was a very lively day. There were nearly 100 gods and Buddhas in total. Shen Long looked around and found that there were still many people he didn't recognize. However, the delay was not to say hello to everyone. Several of the gods who knew about it looked at each other and nodded. They knew clearly in their hearts, what is the purpose of today? And those gods who didn't know really thought that this time I came just to have some silly fun there in the middle of the night and play with other gods. Chapter 560. Just when everyone was having fun here, Guanyin Bodhisattva suddenly stood up, took a few steps forward, and said loudly, "Please be quiet. I have something to tell you today. Please make the decision for me." After hearing what Guanyin Bodhisattva said, Shen Long's eyes were slightly closed, and his expression was a little unhappy. The other gods who knew about it also had the same expression. Who knows what kind of trouble Guanyin will cause if he stands up and speaks so loudly now. "Yesterday, I was taking a shower and changing clothes. I wanted to prepare well for today's banquet. Unexpectedly, this lantern apprentice came to peek." After he said this, he suddenly looked at one of the gods. After hearing this, the other gods followed his gaze. As for the god he named, he was stunned for a moment, and then after reacting, his eyes turned red and his face turned red. "What are you talking nonsense about? Who peeked at you taking a shower?" When he said this, his voice was louder than Guanyin, and he was obviously angry. "How many times have I told you that a little fairy boy came to me that night and said that someone asked me to meet in the back mountain, so I went there. I didn't expect that there was a hot spring on the back mountain, let alone I thought you were bathing and changing clothes there." After he finished saying this, he clenched his fist slightly. Most people would sigh that their fate was good when encountering this kind of situation, but she turned around and left immediately after encountering it. But she didn't expect that it was still a step too late and asked Guanyin to give her a blessing. He discovered it. At that time, he tried his best to explain it to Guanyin, but Guanyin didn't listen to anything he said. Unexpectedly, he even told other gods about this matter today. If this matter really spreads, what will he do in the future? How can you hold your head high in the fairy world when you are a god? Where is the little fairy boy? All the little fairy boys said they had never seen you before. What's more, you didn't tell me that at the time. You clearly said that you were so beautiful. After hearing these words, the slandered god looked like he was about to go up and fight Guanyin at any time. Fuxi saw this and stepped forward without saying a word to stop him. Okay, today is the day of the banquet. Everyone has traveled thousands of miles to come here, just to have a lively fun. Don't make the matter too big. We will resolve it privately after the banquet. Fuxi didn't know what Guanyin was trying to cause trouble, but how could she watch helplessly as Guanyin slandered their gods? Originally, Fuxi thought that Guanyin would give her face no matter what she said, but what she didn't expect was that Guanyin actually glared at him with a very dissatisfied expression. What do you mean? I think this matter is more important than a banquet. A god is spying on another goddess taking a bath. Aren't you afraid of losing the face of us gods if this matter spreads? What else can be done privately? Don't prevaricate me again in private. After saying this, His eyes began to look at Fuxi's face, just as he imagined. Fuxi's expression was not very good now. He was obviously forbearing. He was not afraid of Guanyin and continued at fuel and firewood. Okay, you don't need to say more. I know that your insect just wants to target our Buddha. I couldn't feel it before, but today I can see your partiality all at once. Chapter 561. At this moment, Fuxi realized that things were completely different from what he imagined, and even more serious than he imagined. It was obvious that Guanyin was here to cause trouble. What do you mean by this? Do you deliberately want to provoke conflict between the two parties? Shen Long narrowed his eyes slightly. After saying this, Guanyin snorted. He naturally couldn't bear this burden. I didn't mean anything. I just wanted him to admit it. After hearing this, Shen Long knew that this matter was probably non-negotiable. It was definitely impossible for the god to admit something he had not done, not to mention that he would not agree. Such words would be a certain insult to their fairy world. There is no need to discuss this matter. Whether you have it or not depends on your own heart. I am afraid you know better than anyone else. Either this matter will go away like this, or we can talk about it carefully today. Fuxi took 2 steps forward, glared at Guanyin in front of him, then pulled Shen Long to his side and said a few words to Shen Long. Naturally, the Buddha's opposite would not see Guanyin being treated like this in vain. Insulting. They then took a few steps forward and stood there, glaring at Shen Long and the others opposite. If you don't apologize today, don't blame us for being rude. Don't think that we are easy to mess with. After one of the Buddhas said this, he glared at Shen Long. Seeing this, Shen Long went up and kicked the Buddha without saying a word. Don't blame me for touching you. You didn't even look at who was standing in front of you and you dared to be so rude. After Shen Long said this, the other Buddhas couldn't help but rush over and attack Shen Long. When Shen Long saw this, the corners of his mouth raised slightly. This was okay, although he took the initiative to cause this incident. But both sides took action, and in the end it was hard to blame him alone. What's more, it was the Buddha who was rude first, so he had a reason to shirk others and said that he made the first move. After seeing this, Beizi, who was next to him, felt vaguely he was a little worried. After all, the strength of those Buddhas was not bad. He had seen it before, so he had been hesitating whether to take action. Until just now when he saw Shen Long taking action, he became even more hesitant. What should he do? Do you want to go up and help? At this moment, Fuxi next to him pulled him. You don't have to worry too much, just trust him. Just wait here, and he will probably take care of those people soon. Speaking of this matter, Fuxi was still very confident. He believed that he was right about Shen Long. Beizi felt a little worried at first, but for some reason, he felt relieved after hearing Fuxi's words. So they watched the excitement from the side, watching how Shen Long knocked those Buddhas to the ground, making them unable to stand up. Originally there were more than a dozen Buddhas, but in the end only 2 or 3 were left. 2 or 3 Buddhas looked at each other, but they could not back down, so they could only go up together. In the end, they were successfully knocked to the ground by Shen Long, but Shen Long just looked at them lightly, and felt some contempt in his heart. I thought they had at least a few brushes, but I didn't expect it to be so unbearable. So many people couldn't beat him alone. If this matter spreads, it is estimated that the reputations of these Buddhas will be lost, and maybe those believers will also turn to him. Chapter 562. Apart from anything else, you all obeyed in an upright manner. I thought you had at least some skills, but I didn't expect you to be so unbearable. Who gave you the courage to cause trouble here? Shen Long finally managed to deal with all these people, so naturally he wanted to say a few sarcastic words. Although these words could not cause much harm to them, they could at least insult them and make them feel uncomfortable. Those Buddhas listened. After what Shen Long said, his face became even worse. At this moment, one of them thought of what happened before. Not long ago, Shen Long broke into the Buddha's place with Sun Wukong and the others. At that time, Shen Long took action. They, a group of Buddhist disciples, were knocked to the ground. They did not expect that this incident would happen again today, but today it is even worse than before. After all, it was still in their territory before, and even if they were defeated, it would not spread. But there are so many other gods present today, It is estimated that this matter will be spread out soon. Guanyin Bodhisatva's face became even worse. He did not expect that Shen Long's strength has reached this point. Today, it is all about him. The invited Buddhas are much more powerful than the previous ones. Why are you doing anything to me? If you really don't want to admit it, forget it. Why are you doing anything to these Buddhas? Guanyin was a little stiff. After saying this, he helped the Buddha lying on the ground up. They also want to help the poor people in the room to make them happy. Now that these Buddhas have been beaten, if anything goes wrong with the people in the room, you are the only one to ask. After Shen Long heard what Guanyin said, he already had some confidence in his heart. He knew that when Guanyin said these words, he most likely meant it with a threat. It is very likely that something has happened in the mortal world recently. If anything happens, he will be blamed on him. It is said that he beat the Buddhas, so that the Buddhas can't spare their hands to manage the affairs of the mortal world. When that time comes, those people in the mortal world will come to blame him. It's hard to say that. If you don't have the ability, you just don't have the ability. Don't escape your responsibility. At this moment, Beizi stood up. He was originally worried that Shen Long would not be able to defeat these people, but now it seems that he doesn't need to worry so much. Stop pretending here. It's not like you defeated us. Not to mention Shen Long, you are helping the evildoer. Do you think it is really appropriate for you to do this? After Shen Long heard this, he raised his eyebrows. It seems that these are obsessions. It is not yet certain who is helping the evildoers, as long as I think it's appropriate, that's all. Not to mention that your Buddha doesn't deserve me to help him. If the Buddha is really a Buddha who popularizes all living beings, he will naturally be willing to help him. But unfortunately the Buddha is a villain who seeks advantages and avoids disadvantages. After hearing what Shen Long said, the Buddha's face suddenly turned bad. He stood up, his body trembling slightly because he was obviously angry at Shen Long's words, but Shen Long still looked indifferent. For him, he didn't need to care about the faces of these people at all. Isn't he the Buddha? If he really wanted to, he could deal with the Buddha, but it was not easy to do it rashly now. One day, he would completely defeat the Buddha. This kind of person is not suitable to be a Buddha. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 563. Such people are not suitable to be Buddhas. Originally, Shen Long thought that if he said such excessive words, those Buddhas would ignore him and rush up to fight him. They would defeat him even if they risked their lives. But what he didn't expect was that although these Buddhas looked very angry, they did not move towards him. Come on, it turns out that they are just a bunch of cowards who say that others are helping the tyrants to commit tyranny. If you have the ability, you can directly deal with the people who are complicit in the tyranny. If you don't have the strength, you are still cursing here. Now Beizi can see it clearly. These people are just talking there. They have no strength, so there is no need to be afraid. He can only collect a dozen at most, so naturally he can't deal with too many. But with Shen Long here, he didn't have to worry. He originally thought that today would be very troublesome, but it seemed that he was overly worried. After hearing what Beizi said, those Buddhas naturally looked a little unhappy. Naturally, they wanted to fight against Shen Long, but everyone has seen Shen Long's performance just now, and they all know that Shen Long is difficult to deal with. If there was no Shen Long today, they would rush forward and deal with this group of people no matter what. But that's not necessarily the case today with Shen Long. Is this how you gods treat people? In the future, I will tell this matter to the mortals so that they will not believe you. After one of the Buddhas said this, Beizi thought about it for a moment. He had to say that what he said did have a certain degree of deterrence. There seems to be some competition between them in terms of trust among mortals. But these Buddhas, what do you mean by this? Did you tell me at that time that it was best not to let you go back alive today? Shen Long clearly estimates that he can't fool these Buddhas with his words, but he still has the threat of strength. He doesn't believe that he is not strong enough to shut up these people. He has long disliked these Buddhas. Buddha heard Shen Long after saying this. Wei Wei was startled and his face turned red. They had already thought of using this method to deal with these people, but they didn't expect that Shen Long didn't care. Then these Buddhas started talking one by one, and most of the people were they insulted Shen Long over there, saying that Shen Long had no ability and only had strength, and so on. After hearing this, Shen Long smiled and said nothing else. On the contrary, Beijing next to him was shaking with anger after hearing this. She knew that Shen Long, I also know my strength. These people can't be beaten. That's why Shen Long said this. Say one more thing to me, or I will tear your mouth apart. After Beizhi said this, he rolled up his sleeves. It looked like he wanted to have a big fight with these people. Seeing this, he felt some comfort in his heart. Fortunately, there was someone on his side to protect her. Okay, maybe you really want to take action against them? Maybe they will scold you again before you take action. Shen Long glanced at Beizhi's basket. The Buddha sitting there didn't care about his clothes or anything. It was obvious that he didn't want to manage these Buddhas. He knew that Buddha has made a plan and knows how to come here to mess with them. Now he naturally cannot fall into the Buddha's calculations. But these Buddhas are quite disgusting, and they actually came up with such a nasty way to deal with them. Chapter 564. After hearing this, Beizhi felt a little confused. What the Buddha said was so unpleasant that he would be angry even if he heard it, but Shen Long was still able to look at these Buddhas with a smile. If an uninformed person saw Shen Long's expression, they would never have imagined that those Buddhas were scolding Shen Long. Aren't they just a bunch of chirping little bald donkeys? He doesn't have any real skills, he just keeps talking. Shen Long was full of disdain when he said this. After he said this, Beizhi could clearly feel that the Buddhas were a little reluctant, but Shen Long didn't consider them at all. Instead, he stepped forward and grabbed the Buddha standing at the front. The Buddha was grabbed by Shen Long, but his neck was not tense at all. Instead, he stared at Shen Long as if he was looking for a fight. How is it possible that you want to strangle me to death in front of everyone? If you really have the guts, then do it. After he said this, he laughed even more arrogantly. He knew very well that Shen Long would not do such a thing at all, let alone Shen Long. Even if he was cured, he would not do it. After hearing this, Shen Long, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Not to mention that he really had this idea. He was still hesitating whether to take action, but now that Buddha has already said it, he can't refuse. I didn't expect that you have wanted to die for a long time. Since you want to die, then I will make it happen for you. After saying this, Shen Long directly broke the Buddha's neck. Others around him opened their eyes wide when they saw this scene. Guanyin even took several steps back when he saw this. Even Fuxi didn't, thinking that Shen Long had really taken action. He looked at Shen Long a little nervously, not knowing what crazy move Shen Long would do if he took it off. But he knew that since it had already happened, there was probably nothing he could do to stop it. In this case, then it's better to just let it pass. Did you hear that? It was the Buddha himself who told Shen Long to strangle him to death. After Fuxi said these words, people on the Buddha's side all expressed their dissatisfaction at him. Obviously, they all felt that he was clearly shirking responsibility in the future. How could you do this? There was a Buddha who wanted to continue to insult Shen Long before he opened his mouth, but what he didn't expect was that Shen Long actually came in front of her and looked at him condescendingly. Then, with lightning speed, Shen Long stretched out his hands and pinched his neck. Seeing this, Fo hurriedly took a few steps back, covered his own neck, and did not dare to speak again. Just now he saw with his own eyes how the Buddha died, so naturally he won't have his neck strangled again now. I just want you to shut up. Since you are disobedient, I can only take action. Don't blame me. As soon as Shen Long said this, all the Buddhas glared at him, but no one spoke, but slowly endured it. After all, no one wanted to die, let alone be the one who stood out. Shen Long Jianzi nodded with satisfaction. Nodding, he knew what kind of character these people were, and they would definitely not stand up. To put it bluntly, these people were nothing more than people who sought advantages and avoided disadvantages. Fuxi on the side couldn't help but widen his eyes slightly when he saw this. He had already prepared for a big battle, but he didn't expect that Shen Long would subdue these people so easily. he still admired Shen Long for this. Chapter 565. What Shen Long did was undoubtedly a slap in the face of all the Buddhas present. Some of us could not wear the special 10 guanyin. After all, this matter was so big because of him and they were so embarrassed. Naturally, he can't calm down. It's your fault. Even if you don't apologize, you actually hit someone. This time I want to compete with you. I want to see what you can do to be so arrogant. After Guanyin said these words, he walked out of the court. He also had a small calculation in his mind. Just when Shen Long made a move, he had already seen that he was not Shen Long's opponent, but it didn't mean that he couldn't try with Shen Long. What's more, in terms of daily, Shen Long himself might be the one who suffered the loss. What's more, Shen Long might not be able to be cruel to a woman like her. After hearing this, Shen Long picked one slightly brow. I didn't expect to turn off the sound so much, but directly refused. Although I don't have anything to say about not hitting women, I don't want to fight with you. After Shen Long said this, he stretched out his hand and waved, and Bai Zijianzi next to him also nodded. So just go where you want. After hearing this, Guanyin clenched her fists slightly and said in a provocative tone, "Why don't you fight me? Isn't it because you are afraid that you can't defeat me?" After he finished saying this, Shen Long looked at him. With those tricks he had just done, could it be that Guanyin hadn't realized how powerful he was? I don't know what you think. Anyway, I don't want to fight you, because you are not worthy of doing it at all. It's a waste of my time. What's more, Guanyin proposed to fight with him, and did not say that he wanted the two of them to actually fight. If Guanyin lay on the ground for a while and said that he broke it, how could he take on this responsibility? Stop talking nonsense here. Originally Guanyin thought that Shen Long had other reasons, but what he didn't expect was that Shen Long felt that he was not worthy. He was indeed not as strong as Shen Long, but no one had ever talked to him like this, and suddenly he felt that some people were not worthy of him. Living, don't underestimate me before you take action. How do you know I can't beat you? If I really can't beat you, you have to let me try anyway. Don't tell me you're scared. Shen Long didn't respond after hearing this. He originally wanted to stay silent like this, but Guanyin actually attacked him directly. Seeing this, Shen Long couldn't bear it anymore. The other party had already attacked, so he couldn't bear it any longer. Without saying a word, Shen Long snatched Guanyin's weapon away, threw it to the ground aside, and kicked Guanyin on the knee. Guanyin only felt that his lower body was not steady, and then fell directly to the ground. Shen Long also took the opportunity to step on Guanyin's back, pressing him hard under his feet. When he did it just now, he deliberately restrained himself and used the fastest speed to this method can deal with Guanyin in the shortest time without beating him too badly. And now Guanyin's face is pressed to the ground with a somewhat unpleasant expression. He did not expect that in such a short period of time, Shen Long could actually kill him. Solved. Now he has lost face and lost a lot of face. Who knows what those Buddhas will think of him in the future. Originally, he wanted to save himself, but he did not expect to lose a bigger face. Chapter 566. I had thought about it before and didn't want to fight you, but now that you have come to my door, I can't refuse. I ask you, why don't you tell all the things that Buddha did? After Shen Long said this, Guanyin, who was still struggling under his feet, suddenly stopped moving and stared at the ground without saying anything, as if he was pretending to be dead. Shen Long saw, then he kicked him, but Guanyin took a cold breath and still didn't say anything. Since you don't want to talk about this matter, let's first talk about whether that God is peeking at you. Shen Long is not in a hurry about these matters. He wants to ask slowly, starting from the lighter aspects. Let Guanyin become a thing first, and the subsequent things will become easier to handle. After all, everything is difficult at the beginning. Turn off the phone and listen naturally. He would not admit it later. If this matter spread, where would he put his reputation? Unjustly accusing others of peeking at her. If others knew about this, she would not have to go out again. She was just concerned and wanted to refuse. When Shen Long Jiao increased his strength and kicked an acupuncture point on his body, causing him to break out in cold sweat from the pain. Before you speak, think clearly whether what you are saying is the truth. After Shen Long said these words, Buddha couldn't sit still. How could he watch the people around him being bullied by Shen Long like this? Take action quickly. After he finished saying this, he was glared at by Shen Long. It turns out you can still speak. You were silent when your disciples started to attack you just now. I thought you had become mute recently. After saying this, he ignored the Buddha and continued to increase the strength of his feet. His guanyin directly shouted out and acknowledged it. Don't step on him. Don't step on him. I'll admit it. It's all my fault. After he said these words, he originally thought that Shen Long would lighten up his strength, but what he didn't expect was that the difficulty level would become even greater. Since the second thing has been admitted, why not admit the first thing as well? After Shen Long said this, he glanced at the Buddha next to him. He could see the Buddha's feet with a bad look on his face from the corner of his eye. Guanyin naturally refused after hearing this. She shook her head and stretched out her hand to cover it. After shutting up his mouth and saying that he would not say anything, the man finally started kicking and beating Guanyin. The people around him almost wanted to step forward to stop him, but they were all stopped by the surrounding gods and Beizi. Now even if they want to take action, they have no choice. My request shouldn't be difficult for you. I just want you to be fair. He could feel that and Guan couldn't bear it anymore, and then controlled the strength of her feet, just as he imagined. Guanyin hurriedly begged him for mercy, saying that she would speak. Just as he just lifted his feet when Guanyin opened his mouth, he spat out a mouthful of blood, and then fell to the ground. The people around him opened their eyes wide when they saw this scene, as if they didn't believe their own eyes. Obviously the person just now was still fine, lying there. Why did something happen so quickly? This incident was also unexpected by Shen Long, because Guanyin was still alive just now. Why did something happen so quickly? Especially the Buddhas opened their eyes wide staring this way. Chapter 567. How could you destroy such a living life? One of the Buddhas immediately ran over and pushed Shen Long away. The corpse of 100 Hushu Guanyin hugged Guanyi. When Shen Long saw this, he didn't know what he should say. Beizin next to him saw this. Without saying a word, he followed up and put his hand on Guanyin's hand. I don't understand the rest. I know a little bit about this aspect. If you want to know how he died, let me take a closer look. Originally, that person wanted to stop him, but after hearing what Beizi said, he stopped trying. Beizi looked carefully, frowned slightly, and said loudly, you all saw the strength of Shen Long just now. That strength should not be enough for a god to die directly. And judging from his appearance and his blood, it was obvious that he was poisoned and died. After Beizi said these words, everyone around him was shocked. However, Shen Long didn't have any particularly surprised expression, and even looked at Buddha. But what he didn't expect was that Buddha pretended to be innocent. As if he didn't know anything, Shen Long felt a little angry when he saw this. He didn't expect Guanyin to be so loyal to the Buddha, but he died in the end, and was killed by the Buddha himself. But now he doesn't have any of the evidence, cannot be used to accuse Buddha unjustly, otherwise it will lower his impression. This matter ends here, and we will send someone to investigate Guanyin's affairs. Fuxi didn't expect that such a major thing happened at the banquet. Naturally, he came out to smooth things over, but how could those Buddhas let Fuzai go through it so easily? Now that a bodhisattva under my commands has died here, do you just take care of him so lightly? Buddha suddenly spoke up at this moment. His voice was very magical. Shen Long couldn't help but admire him after hearing it. She was indeed the best in acting. Since you don't want to be understated, I'll go on. Then Shen Long told all the things that Buddha had done before, each time in great detail, and then he also provided some evidence to prove it. After hearing what Shen Long said, Buddha said, his expression became even more gloomy. The other Buddhists didn't believe it at first, but after seeing the Buddha's expression, they actually had some belief in their hearts, especially the evidence. You need to rant here. The Buddha didn't expect that after taking it once, he would be so fully prepared. You know best whether you are spouting blood or not. As for how Guan Yu died, I think it was most likely you who did it. At this moment, Pa Yao next to her looked at the Buddha in great surprise, with some disbelief in her heart. He had always believed that the Buddha was just, so he had always stood on the Buddha's side. But what she didn't expect was Buddha is the biggest evil person. I didn't expect that he could even kill the men around him. The evidence Shen Long brought up and the words Shen Long said made it impossible for him to deceive himself that these were false. Chapter 568. I don't think the evidence you mentioned is true. After all, everyone is a fairy star, so it is quite easy to create false evidence. After the Buddha said this, he narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at Shen Long with a smile, but Shen Long could feel the gloomy look in the Buddha's eyes when he looked at him. At this moment, Shen Long felt a little helpless. He brought out everything that should be said and should be brought out, but what he didn't expect was that the Buddha was so shameless that he insisted on saying that their evidence was fabricated by themselves. If you really say that, I would also say that Guan Yu's death just now was also caused by your family. After all, aren't you monks quite capable? After Shen Long said these words, he felt that Buddha's expression seemed to become stiffer, but he did not think too much, but clapped his hands, and quickly answered several little prodigies, and gave one person to brought it up. Buddha, open your eyes and take a good look. Do you recognize this person? After Shen Long said these words, the man also raised his head and looked directly at Buddha. Seeing this, Buddha was slightly stunned and took 2 steps back, but then he felt that his actions seemed like some of them were too exaggerated, so I coughed twice and pretended that nothing happened. Who is this man? I have never seen him before. Why should I know him? As soon as the Buddha finished saying these words, he didn't expect that the man was even more excited than he thought. He almost rushed over to tear him apart. Fortunately, he was taken down by the 2 little prodigies next to him. Stop telling lies here. Why don't you know me? All my family members died at your hands, and now you actually tell me that you don't know me? After he said these words, everyone around him felt particularly shocked. Some people checked and found that this was just an ordinary mortal, not a god. This is most likely true. In the end, the man sat down and started crying. It turned out that they were a happy family, and they were very happy. They placed a small Buddha statue at home and made offerings to it every day. But what made him feel strange was that even if he praying sincerely to Buddha every day, the Buddha did not bring them any benefits. On the contrary, their lives became worse and worse. At that time, he did not think of anything, but what she did not expect was that the Buddha actually used this little Buddha statue slowly diluted the essence of his family, and by the time he discovered it, it was already too late. Do you know what it feels like to watch a family member die in your arms? You don't know at all. If you knew, you would definitely not do such a disgusting thing. The man almost yelled. After saying this, he collapsed and started crying. After hearing this, the master was also a little shocked. He didn't expect that Shen Long would find this man. He was obviously sent go and kill this man, but he quickly adjusted his condition. Stop talking nonsense here. How could I do those things? You are all mortals all of a sudden. What can I gain by sucking the annoying essence? After saying this, he silently formed a hand seal and hit the man. If you insist on slandering me, then don't blame me for taking action. You're welcome. Today is the end of your death. Chapter 569. When Shen Long saw this, he naturally stepped forward to stop Buddha without saying a word, and looked at Buddha with a joking look, as if he had guessed everything. If you didn't have a guilty conscience, why would you kill someone so quickly? Don't you monks not do this kind of thing? After Shen Long said these words, many gods around looked at the Buddha with a very distant expression. Even some people over there couldn't stand it. Whose fault is it now? He already knows it completely. I originally thought you were the great Buddha in my heart, but I never expected that you would be nothing in the end. After Pixiu said these words, he sighed helplessly and shook his head. At this moment, he suddenly ran towards Baizi and hugged Baizi. Just come back, just come back. Fortunately, it's not too late for you to wake up. Now you finally know his true face. Baizi seemed to have already guessed this. He stretched out his hand and patted Shishi's shoulder. On the surface, it seemed that he had already thought of everything, but in fact he was still very surprised. He didn't expect it. It was even better than he imagined that Pixiu would return to his arms and become good friends with him again. It was a comfort to Shen Long beside him, and he nodded happily when he saw this. It was not considered that his work was in vain. It seems that they were not deceived too badly at all. It's just that these Buddhas were probably deceived to a deeper extent. Shen Long took a look at the Buddhas and had an idea in his heart. Now I don't want to talk nonsense with you so much. Let's just do it. Today I want to see what tricks you haven't used yet. If you still have some conscience, admit your mistake on the spot and let us handle it. Fuxi didn't expect that inviting Shen Long here was the wisest choice he had ever made in his life. As expected, only Shen Long could deal with these people. Before, he was still wondering whether he could succeed this time, but this time it seems that he is very likely to succeed. 89 is going to be successful, let's do it. After Fuxi said this to the gods, everyone took out their weapons and hit the Buddha. The Buddha looked calm when he saw this. Isn't the plan you're thinking of a bit too ridiculous? Could it be that I came here today unprepared and stood here stupidly and let you beat me? The Buddha thought that such a situation might happen before he came. But the situation was even more critical than he imagined. He didn't know whether he could escape smoothly this time. Enter, disciples. After the Buddha said these words, the Buddhas stepped forward to help the Buddha capture these people, and there were many Buddhas hiding around. They also rushed out at this time to fight against the gods. For a while, the Buddha's people here changed. Fuxi's expression changed when he saw this. He didn't expect that Buddha had already planned it in advance and hid someone here. Everyone must work harder to stop him, no matter what. We cannot let him escape today. After hearing this, Shen Long nodded. He originally wanted to go up to help, but what he didn't expect was that Buddha disappeared in front of everyone before he went up. Fuxi's face became even worse when he saw this. He had guessed this result before, but he didn't expect the result to come so quickly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 570. The Buddhas left here are still fighting hard. They can't escape as quickly as Talisman, so time is also in a dilemma, because this is a fairy-like place after all, so they are tied up. With Shen Long's help, most of the Buddhas here were dead in a short time, and the remaining half were injured and could not continue fighting for the time being. Seeing this, Shen Long sighed helplessly and took a breath. He didn't want these Buddhas, but these Buddhas stayed, and the Buddha she wanted left gracefully. Then Shen Long had all the remaining blessings imprisoned in the dungeon. These people might still have some use here, and they couldn't hurt them at will. Let's leave them alone first. Just after Shen Long finished handling the matters here, he saw Fuxi standing there waiting for him. What happened in the past 2 days is thanks to you. If it weren't for you, I would probably be a little embarrassed about this matter. After Fuxi said this politely, he touched his nose in embarrassment. On her territory, people actually ran away. Some of them failed Shen Long. Shen Long looked at seeing Fuxi's expression. I probably guessed why Fuxi was like this. You don't need to feel embarrassed. After all, he is Buddha. He has already thought of it. The method of escape is not something you can easily deal with, but you can rest assured that you won't be able to escape for long. I don't know why. Shen Long always felt that he would meet Buddha again soon, and when that time came, he would teach Buddha a lesson. Fuxi nodded after hearing this, and then called Pixiu over, in front of Shen Long, gave the slightest instructions to the mission. Although Pixiu had always taken refuge with the Buddha before, he was also welcome to change his mind temporarily and come back. After all, this and Bazi were the people he had trained since he was a child. Naturally, he could not lost so easily. It would be better to leave this matter to Wan Qian, as he is relatively sensitive to this aspect. After Shen Long said this, he stretched out and twisted his neck. He stayed here for another 2 days. After settling all the matters here, he proposed that he would return to the Dragon Palace. He came out after so long. She still doesn't know what's going on at Dragon Palace or what changes will happen to her parents. She doesn't know why she always feels that something will happen to her husband. If she goes there now, she might still be able to do so in time. There was indeed something going on at the Dragon Palace, so I went in. Shen Long simply said hello to Fuxi and left here. When he got into the water in the East China Sea, he felt that the atmosphere underwater was completely different from before. Before, life was always happy underwater, sure, but I don't know why there was no laughter this time. In the bottom of the sea was very quiet. Just when he felt doubtful and wanted to continue walking to Dalongkorn, suddenly a little girl tiptoed over to him, and he grabbed her hand. Initially, Shen Long wanted to make a move, but after a closer look, he realized that this person was actually the little maid beside Mother Dragon. Well, you are back now. A lot of things happened in the past few days while you were away. A man who claimed to be Tathagata Buddha occupied this place and defeated Dragon Mother and others. Chapter 571. After hearing this, Shen Long couldn't help but become nervous. No wonder he always felt like something was about to happen in the past 2 days, but he didn't expect that it was waiting for him in this regard. Can you tell me all those things carefully? After the maid heard this, she told Shen Long everything that happened without saying a word. It turned out that after Shen Long left, a little Buddha came not long after, took the place as his own, and even blocked it. Their king asked them to obey him, but the Dragon King of the East China Sea was naturally unwilling, so little Buddha locked them all up. I'm in a good state now. Although it looks a little ugly, it's still much better than those people who have been staying in the dungeon. I think they probably won't survive for long. After saying this, some people couldn't help but cry. After all, he seemed to be the only survivor on their side who had not been investigated. God knows how he kept asking Shen Long to come back quickly every day. What should I do now? Why did I go in to meet my master? But that person was too strict at first, and I don't have the ability to guard here every day. I hope you can come back soon and work with me to serve as the mother of dragons. The person who made the decision went too far. The maid almost cried after saying this. She didn't expect that such a nightmare would come to him. After hearing this, Shen Long narrowed his eyes slightly. It is true that such a life-threatening matter is natural. He couldn't delay it any longer, so he started to make suggestions. Don't worry, just leave this matter to me. I'll go in and have a good talk with that little Buddha. As for you, just stay here and stay well, wherever you were hiding before and where you are still hiding now. After saying this, Shen Long stretched out his hand and touched the little maid's head. I don't know why at that moment, the cliff seemed to feel that he was not so scared. It was all thanks to Shen Long. As for that, Shen Long is currently in a bad temper. He didn't expect that those people would not deal with him and put their bad intentions on Dragon Palace. They were simply wrong. If they had set their minds on other things, maybe he could still forgive Buddha and the others, but the Dragon Palace should not be touched. This was a place he had carefully cultivated. How could he let others destroy it? Then Shen Long followed the specific location mentioned by the little maid and walked away from there. In the past, not long after walking, he saw a smaller palace. There were a few guards in front of the palace. When he saw this, he knew that it was probably here. Who are you? Hurry up and get out of here. Being careful will kill you. Obviously, the guard who was guarding didn't know who Shen Long was, so he spoke rudely. Shen Long smiled after hearing this. You don't need to talk so much nonsense. Just tell your master that the person he wants is here, and see if he will come to greet me in person. After Shen Long's paid attention, the guard immediately reacted, and then looked at Shen Long nervously. He originally thought that Shen Long would play some tricks, but he didn't expect that Shen Long would stand there so calmly. Let him search you. And he searched there for a long time, but he didn't take out anything, except for some daily weapons. There was nothing dangerous. Chapter 572. Then one of the guards looked at Shen Long here, and the other one trotted in and told Jiafo about the matter. After hearing this, Jiafo ran out without saying a word, with a very happy expression on his face. After seeing Shen Long, he raised his chin and looked at him with great interview pleasure. He knew that as long as he took this place down, Shen Long would most likely come to his door on his own. Oh, isn't this busy man Shen Long? Why do you have time to come to my place? What do you want to say to me today? At this point, little Buddha started to lose his temper again. After he finished speaking, Shen Long didn't pay much attention to him, but said calmly, I didn't come here to waste so much nonsense with you. Now as long as you release all the people from the Dragon Clan, how about I be willing to go in with you and be imprisoned by you? After Shen Long said this, He saw the little Buddha thinking for a moment, and finally nodded, and agreed. Shen Long also knew that no one could refuse such a request. After all, little Buddha's target was originally him. In this case, put this chain on yourself. He pulled out a long chain from the corner, and these dead people tied the chain to themselves without saying a word. The other end was at little Buddha. Little Buddha became even happier after taking the chain. Shen Long, originally I thought he would keep his promise, but I didn't expect that Zhaofou would push him directly into the cell and want to leave. Have you forgotten the agreement we made just now? After hearing this, Zhaofou ignored him at all. Instead, he walked out directly to see Shen Long. He felt a little unhappy. This was obviously treating him as a fool, but at the same time, Shen Long also raised the corner of his mouth. He knew that little Buddha might not let the people go, so he deliberately pretended to come willingly and waited to be caught. If he rushed in rashly, it was very likely that little Buddha would take these people as hostages. He must be careful not to injure the Dragon Clan people. After all, there are very few Dragon Clan people now. Finally, he began to observe the environment around him. He found that he was close to those dragons. He didn't recognize a few dragons at the time, but he was very familiar with some dragons. He saw an older dragon lying in a cell, and he knew that this was most likely the Dragon King of the East China Sea. He was lying there unconscious now. He is not awake, so he must have suffered a certain amount of damage. Look at the cell next door to Yazin's. Yazin is even more exaggerated now. His body is covered with blood. His clothes are still dripping with blood. Judging from his pale face, knowing that he must have received inhuman treatment these days. As for the mother of dragons next to him, the mother of dragons has been crying. I just noticed that Shen Long cried even more after he was arrested. I also placed my hope on Shen Long, but I didn't expect that Shen Long would also be arrested. My benefactor, why did you come in? I clearly asked that maid to talk to you. What should I do now? We can't get out. After hearing this, Shen Long didn't make any answer, but if you look closely, you can see that he is a little angry now. They are all his people here, and how can he endure it when his people are treated like this? I didn't expect little Buddha to be so bold to attack his people. Chapter 573. Just when Shen Long was still angry and wanted to find out the mastermind behind the scenes and cut him into pieces, little Buddha suddenly appeared in front of Shen Long and smiled at Shen Long. I had heard them say before that you were a difficult person to deal with, but I didn't expect you to be locked up by me so easily. When he talked about this, he became proud and raised his chin proudly, looking very happy. Don't say that I'm making things difficult for you. I'll give you two choices now. Either be killed here directly, or swallow the poison and seek refuge with the Buddha. Zhaofou was very determined when he said this. 9 times out of 10, Shen Long will choose the second one. Although the second one is indeed to betray his current organization, at least he will save his life. I believe in smart people. They would all choose the second one, and few would choose the first one. He also felt that Shen Long would not be the kind of person who wanted to die so easily. After hearing this, Shen Long frowned slightly, but he did not expect that the Buddha would. She also wants to get him to take refuge in the past. Of course, this is definitely impossible. He will never do such a thing in his life. She may not be able to accept it if he is allowed to act with people like Buddha, let alone what he does is harmful to nature. Matter what if I choose neither. After Shen Long said this, he kept staring at Yi Haoken. He didn't know why Zhaofou suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of oppression, which made him feel uncomfortable all over. He tried his best to comfort himself. There was no need to be afraid, let alone go how worried. He stiffened his neck and said, if you don't make a choice, I will automatically choose the first option for you. After he said this, he felt that his conditions were not enough. So he continued, and if you die, I will not keep 8 or 9 of these people from the Dragon Clan, and they will definitely not seek refuge with Buddha. In this case, it is better to kill them all. Zhaofou glanced at the corner of the Dragon Mother's mouth next to him, and a slight feeling of contempt arose in his heart. This woman has been crying since she was arrested. He had long been impatient and wanted to kill her. Who do you think I should start with first? I might as well start with that female dragon after you die. Just as he finished saying this, he felt a chill on his neck, and then he saw Shen Long come out of it at some point, and stood in front of him, holding his neck with one hand. "Now it's not me who makes the choice but you. I've come out and it's you who should make the choice. I automatically chose for you to die, okay?" After Shen Long finished saying this, he saw little Buddha stiffen and look at Shen Long in disbelief. He struggled to escape, but he was pulled back by Shen Long after just a few steps. And this time Shen Long's intensity increased, making it impossible for him to struggle out no matter what. "How did you get out?" When Alpha said this, he was full of panic. If he had known that Shen Long would escape, he would never have come close to this place. After hearing this, Shen Long smiled contemptuously. That kind of small broken cage, it would be too wishful thinking to want to lock him up. However, he did not have little Buddha to explain to him, but directly threw little Buddha into the cell with his backhand. Chapter 574. I don't want to answer the question you asked me. I just wanted to ask you, which way of death do you want to choose? After Shen Long finished saying this, he stretched out a finger and touched the center of little Buddha's eyebrows. Then little Buddha felt that many pictures appeared in his mind, including one of himself being thrown into the oil pan and left to his own devices. The scene of being roasted by fire and having his head cut off made him tremble with fear. He knew that if Shen Long thought about it, these scenes would become a reality. In the end, he hurriedly took a few steps back before Shen Long cut himself off. Withdrew his fingers. I don't know how you will torture me next, but what I do know is that life and death are still in my own hands. As soon as he finished saying this, he saw Shen Long pinching his chin directly, and forcibly opening his mouth, and took out a small package of something from it. Before, Shen Long had been tortured by Guanyin. This is a lesson. He has known for a long time that people on their side will prepare some poison in their mouths. Naturally, he will not let little Buddha die so easily. He also wants to know from little Buddha well about what Buddha did. He cannot do this. Let him die easily. This would be too easy for him. Now that the poison in your mouth is gone, do you still feel that life and death are in your hands? After Shen Long said this, he threw the poison aside casually. After seeing it, little Buddha opened his eyes wide and took a deep breath. Now he probably really needs to listen to what Shen Long said, otherwise if so, he is likely to face all kinds of torture. Just stay here for now, I'm going to do other things, but if I see you moving around when I come back, I'll pull your neck right off. After Shen Long said this, he gave a sinister smile that scared little Buddha so much that he didn't dare to move and stayed in place. But Shen Long walked out of the cell without even closing the cell door, because he knew that little Buddha would probably he didn't have the courage to escape from here. After Shen Long got out, he opened the Dragon Mother's cell first, and together with the Dragon Mother, he released all the other Dragon Clan members. Shen Long took a brief look and found that now the Dragon King of the East China Sea is still in a coma, and although Yazan is seriously injured, he is still awake and able to lift weapons. That little Buddha who killed 1,000 swords, I will definitely not let him off easily this time. After saying this, everyone in Yezui was unconvinced. If he wanted to argue about his true abilities, I guess Zhaofo was really no match for him. However, man-made threats from Zhaofo and the Dragon King of the East China Sea forced him to put down his weapons and enter the cell. Who knew Zhaofo, a villain, had subjected her to various tortures after he entered the cell, causing him to be seriously injured. Now, he had long wanted to pay her back. Next, I will take Donghai Dragon and them out to treat Donghai Dragon King quickly. Your injury should not be too serious. Can you hold on for a while? As soon as Shen Long said these words, Yazan understood what Shen Long meant, so he nodded immediately, saying that he had no problems at all. Shen Long took some people out, and then they all walked out. After that, Yazan slowly approached the cell where little Buddha was. Long time no see. After Yazan said this, he entered the cell, and when little Buddha saw Yazan's terrifying expression, he trembled with fear. Chapter 575. On the other side, after Shen Long took Donghai Dragon King and others out, he immediately found a suitable place to treat Donghai Dragon King's wounds. The Donghai Dragon King's injuries were quite serious this time. At that time, it was considered our freshman year and we didn't expect that since little Buddha was so powerful, the Dragon King of the East China Sea could win. But in the end, There were people ambushing him around. The mother of dragons was full of displeasure when she talked about this matter. If it hadn't been for little Buddha's tricks, they wouldn't have suffered such pain this time. Shen Long nodded after hearing this, feeling that these dragons were really real. Some of them are too easy to deceive. People like little Buddha are obviously not people who will honestly compete with others. After all, little Buddha also knows his own strength. 9 times out of 10, he will not be able to attack the Dragon King of the East China Sea. Naturally, he has to use some wind by other means. Let's not talk about this for now. There will naturally be someone on his side to deal with it. I will heal the Dragon King of the East China Sea first. Shen Long simply treated some wounds for the Dragon King of the East China Sea, and also input the spiritual energy from his body into the Dragon King of the East China Sea. It's almost been processed now, and the next processing will take some time. I'll go take a look at Yazing first. Shen Long said hello to Mother Long, said some things to pay attention to, and then left. When she returned to the cell, she saw Yazin sitting leisurely on a chair, and little Buddha lying on the ground. He knows life and death. When Yazin saw Shen Long coming, he immediately stood up and gave up his chair to Shen Long. This little Buddha must have been a little too careless. I just used some small methods. I didn't expect that he wouldn't be able to support it. How can a body like this fight against our dragon clan? Speaking of this matter, Yazin felt that their dragon clan was really unlucky for losing. If little Buddha had more or less abilities, he wouldn't have said much. But with little Buddha's body being so weak, he would still. All the members of the dragon clan were captured. After this was revealed, how could he have the dignity to continue to live in the world? After hearing this, Shen Long felt that he should teach the people in the cage a lesson in the future, so that they would have some precautions in their hearts. Otherwise, if they encounter people like Alpha again, they will probably be arrested again. Just give him this elixir. Shen Long poured out an elixir from a small porcelain bottle and handed it to Yazin beside him. After getting the elixir, Yazin smelled it carefully and knew that there would be many high-quality herbs in this elixir. It must be expensive. Although he was a little reluctant to feed such a good elixir to little Buddha, since Shen Long had spoken, he naturally would not refuse. After little Buddha took this elixir, the wounds on his body slowly recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Not long after, little Buddha woke up. When he saw Shen Long, he immediately got up and knelt beside Shen Long. I beg you to save me. What I did before was wrong of me. I shouldn't treat you like this. If little Buddha had never thought that he would kneel down and beg for mercy before, but he didn't think so after seeing Yuzui's methods. He didn't expect that Yuzui, who looked upright, was a person who was better than him. It was even more powerful than he imagined, and he almost couldn't hold on and died. Chapter 576. Things like face are naturally not worth mentioning in front of fate, so he lowered his face to beg Shen Long now. Shen Long nodded after hearing this and asked him, so now can you tell me the specific information about Buddha? After Shen Long finished speaking, Dalfo's face froze, and then he looked at Shen Long in confusion. If I tell you such an important thing, can you let me go and send someone to protect me in the future? Little Buddha knew that if he revealed the news about Buddha to Shen Long, Buddha would definitely not let him go easily. But if he didn't tell him, his life would be in danger now. As soon as he finished saying this, he kicked her dissatisfied and reminded him. Now he has no right to choose. If he doesn't want to talk, they will not continue to ask. Everything depends on little Buddha's attitude. For them, little Buddha, even a dying person, has no choice in front of them. Just like what little Buddha asked Shen Long just now. If little Buddha doesn't answer, they can make certain choices for little Buddha and help him choose the path he least wants to choose. Of course, everything depends on little Buddha's reaction. After little Buddha heard it, he realized that he had asked for these things. Even if he told everything, he might not get any repayment. Even so, she still told what she knew. I know the approximate location of the Buddha here. I also have a map here. Take this map and look at it slowly. I don't ask you for anything else. I just ask you to stop torturing me like that. After Shen Long left just now, what he experienced was something he didn't want to recall in his life. After hearing this, Shen Long took the map back calmly and did not answer him, nor did he say anything. Will he let others torture him? Shen Long looked at it carefully and confirmed that it was the real map. Then he glanced at Yazin, who also understood what Shen Long meant, so he nodded. Don't worry. It's impossible for me to let you go completely, but I won't treat you as horribly as I did just now. At this point, Yazin still felt that he had not fully enjoyed the game, but since Shen Long had already spoken, he could not say anything more. In the end, Shen Long took Yezu out together, and on the way back to the Dragon Palace, the man he also said to Yizhu Zhaofo's side is left to you. How you want to punish him is all your business. I won't interfere. And the Dragon Palace side will be handed over to you soon. The situation on the side of the Dragon King of the East China Sea is very bad, and it is estimated that he will not wake up for a while. As soon as he finished saying this, he realized that Yazin around him was a little emotionally unstable, but he no longer had so much time to comfort Yazin. After I leave, Dragon Palace is all in your hands. I don't know how long it will take for me to come back. If something happens, I will send someone to Fuxi immediately to find me. Shen Long explained some more things. After he finished everything he needed to say, he left and went to number 3 to pack. When he arrived, number 3 had been waiting for him for a long time. You're finally here. I've been waiting here for a while. Number 3 also knew that Shen Long would be back soon, but Shen Long came back later than he thought. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 577. Shen Long simply told Fuxi everything that had happened just now, and Fuxi was slightly surprised when he heard it. He knew that the Buddha would definitely have some backup plans, but he didn't expect that the Buddha would actually have his mind set on Shen Long. He was really a guy who wasn't afraid of death. Now that you know the specific location of Buddha, are you going to chase her immediately? After hearing this, Shen Long thought for a moment and nodded. After he came back from the Dragon Palace, he thought that he would never let Buddha go easily. If it weren't for Buddha, the Dragon King of East China Sea and the others would not be like this. I hope you can leave matters concerning Buddha to me. After Shen Long finished saying this, he saw Fuxi nodding his head, and after thinking about it, he pointed to Beizi and Paizayu next to him. Buddha is not that easy to deal with. It would be too dangerous for you to go there alone. It is better to ask 2 of them to follow you so that you can have someone to look after you on the way. Fuxi has no doubts about Shen Long's strength. After all, he has seen it on the spot before. But Buddha is so scheming. Who knows if he will come up with other crooked ideas to deal with Shen Long. Shen Long heard. Then I took a look at Beizi and Paizayu, and found that both of them were quite positive, so I nodded and took some people with me. It was much better than going alone. By the way, I will assign some other manpower to help you. If there are not enough manpower, you can come and tell me at any time and I will continue to send more manpower. After Fuxi finished saying this, he took out a few things from the small box on the side and put them in Shen Long's hands. Shen Long took a closer look and realized that they were signal bombs. This is our unique flare. As long as you encounter any crisis, light the flare, and people around us will see it and will go over to help you. After hearing what Fuzai said, Shen Long shook his head and put the signal bomb back into Fuzai's hand. You are indeed very thoughtful, but I'm afraid I won't be able to use this kind of thing. I have confidence in my own strength, so I don't think I need these things. The manpower you sent is enough. Shen Long was very sincere when he said this. He was indeed confident in his own strength. It would be better to let Fuxi get this kind of thing after the due date. But what Shen Long didn't expect was that he said this. It was Fuxi who was speaking. Before he could refute, Pa Yao next to him could no longer stand it. I didn't expect you to be so arrogant. When people help you, you still. Somehow, before he could say these words, he was pulled by Beizi next to him. In desperation, he could only hold these words back in his stomach. Of course, Shen Long didn't care too much about him and took them to the Taihang Mountains together. Shen Long remained silent along the way. Most of the time, Baizi and Paiziyu were talking. Shen Long listened quietly without any expression, as if he was thinking about a problem. He has always wondered why Buddha would choose a place in the Taihang Mountains that was not very hidden. Although he didn't know why Buddha chose this place, since he had got the clue, he always wanted to take a look. Chapter 578. They walked down the mountain for a while and found a small village at the foot of the mountain. Originally, he had no intention of staying and continuing to see the village, but at this moment, he suddenly saw a familiar figure in the village. Although the figure only flashed past, Shen Long was sure that he had seen it correctly. 9 times out of 10, that person was Guanyin. "What were you in a trance just now?" Baizi asked with some doubts. Originally, he wanted to take Shen Long up the mountain, but he didn't expect that Shen Long had been staring in the direction of the village and would not go forward. "I saw that there seemed to be a Guanyin figure in the village." After Shen Long said this, he wanted to pay attention, but what he didn't expect was that Pixiu actually stopped him at this moment. "You may be thinking too much. Not only did Guanyin die that day, but she died at your feet." After Pixiu said this, he gave Shen Long a hand and persuaded Shen Long not to look inside the village again. Who knows where Guanyin would be hiding in such a big village, and most likely she was dazzled. The deaths that they cared about that day were all witnessed by all of them. After hearing this, Baizi also felt that there was a certain truth in it, and he persuaded him together. After hearing this, Shen Long had to give up this thought in his heart, but what he was sure of was that he should not have had it just now. "Wrong if that's the case, then let's go." Shen Long sighed helplessly, and then continued walking up the mountain with the two of them. Just as they walked not long ago, they suddenly saw someone passing by them, and then Shen Long Jiao stopped. "Whoever is hiding, come out." After Shen Long finished saying this, he saw several people coming out of the woods on one side, and a few more people jumping down from the trees on the other side. These people were obviously several Buddhas. Seeing Shen Long's eyes here squint slightly, "If you can meet these people in this place, chances are the Buddha is here." Good eyesight. One of them couldn't help praising Shen Long and then took out his weapon. It was obvious that he wanted to fight with Shen Long. Seeing this, Shen Long couldn't help but sneered. He didn't expect that he couldn't beat these 10 in the eyes of Buddha. A Buddha. That day, he hit more than a dozen Buddhas at once. Then Shen Long hooked his fingers, obviously letting them attack in advance. These people were not polite to Shen Long, and rushed towards him. Shen Long took action. Shen Long did not retreat, but retreated with attack. Originally, Baizi and Pixiu, who were next to him, wanted to step forward to help Shen Long, but they found that Shen Long could handle it alone, and beat these people back step by step. "You guys underestimate me a little too much. You really think you can stop me?" Shen Long has full confidence in these people, and he knows that he can easily deal with them. After hearing what Shen Long said, those people looked a little bad, obviously because they were underestimated by Shen Long, and they felt they were in an unhappy mood. Their strength has always been good. Since they were little, others have been chasing them and praising them, but they didn't expect to meet a genius like Shen Long. They joined forces to fight, but Shen Long, not to mention being underestimated by Shen Long, how could they endure it now? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.